So we have quorum. It is 5:03. Let's go ahead and get started. Do we have any corrections to the minutes? I had noticed one typo at the bottom, item number 4. It accidentally says start earlier with planning for next week's bike week events instead of next year's.
Oh, okay.
And I think that was the
That's
only thing
fair.
I saw.
That's fair. Well, I always put in one typo to see if somebody catches it.
Hearing uh, no other changes to the minutes, they stand as read. All right, our big item, Franklin Road reconstruction. Franklin Avenue reconstruction, sorry.
Yeah. So the Public Works Committee earlier in September has been talking about how to design, are there any design changes as they prepare to reconstruct the street, developing a design for reconstructing the street. And so there was a referral, and Carrie, I don't know if you were at the meeting. I didn't check the minutes, but I'm sure you could speak to this better than anybody on the call because you were there. So any questions about the intent of the committee? I guess Carrie would be best positioned to answer that. But what I have in your packet is the materials that were given to the Public Works Committee, including the memorandum from the consulting engineer, and then of course the preliminary design. I will add that our comprehensive plan for the city, as I noted in the staff report, comprehensive plan touches on this in a couple places, identifying it as a candidate for a shared street design that discourages vehicle through traffic. And we wrote that a couple years ago. Be curious in anybody's perspectives on having biked along that route or walked along that route. I don't think it's too much of a problem at the moment, but obviously we are trying to be sensitive to complete streets and make sure that, given the limitations of University Avenue, that there are suitable parallel routes, in this case, Franklin on the north and then Elmwood on the south. So I'll turn that over to the committee for discussion, and maybe Carrie, you could shed any more light that needs to be shed.
Mark, can you remind us of what is it just like we're commenting on this final design? Was there any, I don't know, I was at the meeting, but was there any questions that were directly raised to the committee?
Yeah, specifically one of the ideas was raised, as I understand it, was raised crosswalks. I can't remember if I put the minutes of the Public Works Committee in here today. Maybe I didn't do that.
You did.
Okay.
Well, not the minutes, but you did include the mention of the raised crosswalks.
Was it my staff comments? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, one or more raised crosswalks, such as at Park Lawn Place, and the committee decided not to favor such a feature. And the reason for that, what that means with stop control, let's go back to the map here. So what they're saying is if you start on the east, which is at Sauk Trail School, there's no stop control at Wood Road, but that also is a T intersection and hasn't been observed to have any problems there. That people coming out of the T are supposed to be yielding, but that happens when there's no sign. They're supposed to be doing that. At Mayflower, there are stop signs on Franklin heading east and west, and Mayflower is a north-south through street. Park Street is also a north-south through street, and Park Lawn is. So in this case, if you're traveling east on Franklin, you have to stop at Park Lawn. Well, actually, we were starting from the east, so the first stop you have is at Mayflower. Or do I have that backwards now? Wait a minute. Yeah, I think there's a stop at. Now I got to look that up. Maybe it's a stop at.
There's no north-south stops. There's only east-west stops.
Exactly, that's what I thought. So Mayflower. Yeah. Then you basically are stopping at every four-way intersection, not the three-way intersections. Actually, that's the quick summary. So everything, you know, at Bristol Street and then further west at Middleton Street, those are four-way stops. So if you are an east-west traveler along Franklin, you are stopping at every four-way intersection. That's the summary. So they, the committee, Public Works Committee, talked about whether it would be desirable to have any raised crosswalks, and they decided not to.
Yes, and I'll just add, the conversation was that, you know, the purpose of the raised sidewalks was to kind of, you know, again, like give visibility, slow down. And I think that was where they were wondering if it was valuable in this situation because vehicles are coming to a stop.
So as a pedestrian, I've never actually seen a car come to a complete stop unless, you know, I still have like 30 feet to get there. And then I have to wait for them to go anyway. Snark aside. So yeah, so I put the link to the FHWA fact sheet. One of the images in there shows a raised crosswalk. If you scroll down, there's a photo on page 2, and you can see from the stop bar in the left of the image that that is at an intersection that has some kind of stop control. It might be a stop sign hidden behind that light pole. It could be a stop light across the street. The presence of stop control doesn't really say anything about whether a raised crosswalk is desirable. In this case, so the reason I mentioned the functional classifications, Franklin itself is a local, Park Lawn and Branch are both collectors. So it would be desirable to put raised crosswalks across Franklin on Park Lawn and then at Branch. So these would be north-south crosswalks. These help designate to people turning on or off the collector that pedestrians along the collector have priority. So it's partly about visibility there. It's partly about reminding them that just because they're in a car, they aren't ruling the road. That's another thing about stop signs like that is that a majority of drivers will tend to intentionally or not block the crosswalk. A raised crosswalk makes it a little more obvious not to do that. And then while I'm on the explaining why I asked for all those links kick, so the shared street design.
I'm going to it. Yeah.
So it was mentioned the possibility of making this a shared street. The shared streets are a wonderful thing. I don't think it's appropriate for this context if we truly intend for Franklin to be an alternative to University for cyclists. The relevant feature here is that shared streets slow everybody down as close as possible to walking speed. The only people who should be spending any amount of large amount of time on a shared street are people with destinations or origins somewhere along that street. So creating a low speed shared street like that we then send bicycle through traffic down kind of misses the point. A better design for that is a bicycle boulevard, which was the last link. Yeah, if you Mark, while we're here, if you click on the after picture, if you scroll up a bit.
Oh, sorry. I don't know what you mean by the after picture.
Yeah, so there's that spot.
Oh, I see
It
what you
says
mean.
existing, and then it has underneath, It has, yeah,
Yeah.
so if you see from the after, you can see the shared street, it's narrow. It alternates the sides of the street that street parking, on-street parking is on, so that drivers have to slow down and chicane around. It's, it's perfectly reasonable for local bike traffic, but again, it's not really a good design for through bike traffic. So if we kind of have to make a decision about our intention. If we intend Franklin to be an alternative to University for cyclists for through bicycle traffic, then we're really more looking at a bicycle boulevard. How long is it going to be before the next reconstruction? 25, 30 years, Mark?
Well, yeah, I mean, we do resurfacings, seal coats and resurfacings and all that in between.
Right,
Full reconstruction comes along once in a generation.
right. So if we wanted to bicycle boulevard it and put like mini roundabouts in the intersection, now would be the time.
The other thing I would point out is that this is the route to the Good Neighbor Festival Parade,
Right.
and that has become quite well received from what I can tell. We're not going back to University Avenue for that parade. That doesn't mean Franklin will always be hosting the parade, but it is currently, and it will for the foreseeable future, as long as the festival is located where it is. So that's something else to take into consideration.
And Tad, I think that context is super helpful. And I think that's exactly what the Public Works Committee was kind of wondering is like, more of the reasoning of like why the raised crosswalks would be beneficial. And that's where like, I do recall like that was like, well, we're already stopping, right? So do we need these? Like, so I think that context is super helpful. And I agree, like, we need to decide like, what is the purpose of that? Because if we do want to kind of defer traffic to other roads, right? And encourage bicycles there, like that makes sense. So I think that's super helpful.
Yeah, and I guess this question might be for Mark. So I'm just wondering about the process. So the Public Works Committee asked for this committee's input on this, and it sounds like and then they provided comment on the input that we provided, the initial input. So then are they seeking additional comment from us to make a decision on this issue, or how's that process work?
So they have been reviewing a preliminary design and provided some feedback to the consulting engineer to prepare a final design. But as that final design is prepared, they wanted the Ped Bike Transit Committee's input. So I was going to, whatever you decide, whatever your feedback is tonight, I was going to share that with their engineer, Sean Stowski, and he can determine how to, if that goes back to the Public Works Committee or goes straight to the consultant. That I'm not clear on that, I guess. But
Okay.
This is definitely the time to provide input because they've been working at this for a while. I mean, the other approach would have been or could have been to out of the gate ask us for any feedback we wanted, but it's sometimes easier to react to things that are before you instead of just starting with a blank slate. Anyway, we are where we are in terms of preliminary design being in our packet, and they seemed willing. The committee members seemed willing to make some revisions based on this committee's feedback.
Thank you.
If I could say something,
Yeah.
I'm with Tad on the idea of putting the raised crosswalks on Park and Branch. I'm near those intersections quite a lot, either on foot, on my bike, or in a car, and I think those are good candidates. I totally agree. I mean, the presence of a stop sign really doesn't mean anything, in my opinion. And for evidence, I encourage you to stand at the intersection of Frank Lloyd Wright and the Metro Market parking lot and Pheasant Branch Road and just watch as car after car kind of stops and then just rolls right through. I'm sure the people up there would love to have 4 raised crosswalks to encourage cars to actually heed the sign. So yeah, and I'm a little frustrated as one of the members of council who was there when we approved the complete streets policy. Because it doesn't, and I know this committee is working on the guidance, but it seems like it is an ongoing battle to try to make progress on innovative for us features such as raised crosswalks, green pavement that makes crosswalks much more visible. I noted the proposal says add standard crosswalk pavement marking, and I don't know if that's a reference to just the standard white or like, is that ruling out green? But I really think if we have a policy and if it's in our comprehensive plan that we're going to be mindful of all users, not just cars, we have to start implementing these things. So I wonder if it's possible to arrange for the Public Works Committee to have someone from the, I don't know, Mark, who you would recommend, the MPO or Madison, somebody from who can speak with authority on what these features are, what a raised crosswalk does and does not do, where it's suitable, and what the benefit is of making these changes, and what their experience has been with similar infrastructure in their own communities. I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, Lisa, I agree with that because I think it always comes up in terms of like a cost benefit discussion, right? So I think that that's where if we had clearer, when I say we, when the Public Works Committee has clearer benefits, I think that they can make a, more informed decision that way. So I think that would be really helpful. Sorry, I know that question was to Mark. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I was gonna say that along these lines, I've been, of course, as we all have, I'm sure, keeping an eye on best practices in other communities. Madison, we don't have to go far to see a lot of, I won't even say innovative anymore, but it's innovative by Middleton standards. Perhaps in Madison, especially with the BRT, bus rapid transit deployment and corresponding bike and pedestrian infrastructure. Tad and I took some time last weekend to visit some of these locations in Madison, and we found a raised crosswalk that was along Mineral Point Road. I mean, it was on a side street from Mineral Point Road, which I didn't even know that Madison was putting them in there. And so this is obviously being done, and there's experience very close by where we can learn from them. So I'm happy to identify someone to come speak with the group. I can work with, maybe it's can be a joint meeting with Charles Myers is working that out with Tad for a joint committee meeting. Where, just for, so I understand, looking at this map, which I assume is still, I don't have a green box, but I assume, oh yeah, here it is, green box. Is this where you were thinking right here, or you were thinking the raised crosswalk along?
Yes, it crosses, it always crosses the minor street. So
Yep, exactly.
with Branch and Park Lawn both being collectors, we want it to cross Franklin.
Okay. On both
So
sides of Park
both
Lawn?
sides on Park Lawn, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to clarify.
And Tad, I don't know, like whenever that motion is, if like we could include the benefits of why, I think that would be helpful.
Okay. Mark, is this technically a motion for feedback?
That's fine. Yeah, that'd be fine. If you wanted, I mean, if there's anything else, I think the discussion about the chicane effect, I thought was really helpful. I would agree. We don't want to introduce that here to have people weaving. Maybe I'm a little too biased because of my parade experience, but
Well, okay, so I do want to come back to that because I do want to ask the question, do we want this to be the bike alternative? Because, so if we want this to be a bike alternative to University, we need to consider changes to the stop signs to the east-west stop signs at Mayflower and at Park. What we'd like to see is cyclists actually able to keep speed as they head towards Park or Park Lawn, and not have to slow down every time as they come to a stop sign, while north and south car traffic can just keep going. So one possibility is a mini roundabout, but there are others. The idea again is to allow cyclists to keep speed without encouraging motorists on the east-west to just rat race through there as a way of avoiding traffic on University. But mini roundabout, unless it was designed very carefully, could be a very interesting addition to a parade.
Hadn't thought about that.
I'm wondering, not that I disagree with Tad about the mini roundabout. I think, it's worth exploring. I'm wondering, since we're spending in total for the street and the water and sewer over $3 million for this project, what about doing something really innovative for Middleton and having doing what other cities do, where the bike lane goes along the curb and the parking lane is between the driving lane and the bike lane?
We don't have dedicated bike lanes here. Are you talking about having a standard width road where you have a travel lane in each direction? Or were you?
Well, I mean, if this is going to be the bike route, since University isn't going to be it, why would we not want, I mean, okay, granted, there's probably not enough space. Is that the problem? There's not enough space for 2 bike lanes?
Assuming the street is 36 feet wide, which is fairly standard, that's a travel lane in each direction and a parking lane in each direction, and that's pretty much what you get. If you introduce bike lanes, then you lose a parking lane. And looking at Park Street as an example, or Parmenter or Branch Street. But there are other configurations of streets, as you noted. One thing I would add is that we have seen examples now where sidewalks get replaced on one side of the street, and then you have a bike path replacing it. Regarding University Avenue, it'd be great to have that be a complete street, but the only way we can ever put a path along University is to acquire right of way.
Right.
Or lose the terrace, and I just don't think that's feasible largely because of expense, but we just don't have the legal authority to do that. So that's why we're looking at this as an option. Elmwood to the south is also has become a fairly active. In fact, I would say it's probably the most active bike route in the city, because of connecting Madison and downtown Middleton and Greenway Center. And then Parmenter Street is also a big north-south route. So Franklin doesn't carry as much and probably won't carry as much bike traffic as Elmwood in the future. But so whether we need to consider a protected bike lane or a buffered bike lane, I don't think that that's necessary, in my opinion.
I don't think it is either. At the moment, the motorist traffic along Franklin is so low. In my experience, as long as I'm just kind of trailing off.
Yeah, I was just gonna add, I went by it today because I often do ride that way when I'm even heading out of town. It's a very quiet street. I went through today. I saw no bikes in I don't even know if I passed a car going in either direction.
No, it's not. What about the idea of a raised intersection on the entire intersection, table intersection, as opposed to 4 or 2 raised crosswalks? Is that way you slow the north-south traffic as well, in theory? Just throwing that out there as an idea.
Yeah. Um,
Well,
From
the
what I
north-south is, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, from what I understand, that's done when the streets are of similar classification. So the local across collector is the issue there. But I don't think it's impossible. I think it's just something we need to think about.
Well, Park Street, for example, northbound traffic, if they get a green light at University, can just motor along, and at some point they need to start
Right.
slowing down. So maybe, that would be a good application there.
Yeah, actually, at Park Street, it would make perfect sense, right? Because right there, Park is a local. I'm not married to the mini roundabout idea. I'm just specifically thinking we need to explore alternative designs to stop control in that area that slow motor traffic and speed up bike traffic. That's what I'm going for. And I think a raised intersection could be one of those. It would make sense at Park. It would make sense at Mayflower too. Ooh, and bulb outs.
So what would you like me to record? Trying to cognizant of being halfway through our meeting time.
Right.
I was hearing consensus around or no objection, I should say, to the idea of raised crosswalks on both sides of Park Lawn and at Branch.
Right. So I think we are recommending raised crosswalks across Franklin on both sides of Park Lawn and on the west side of Branch. Oh, Brad.
Sorry, with the raised crosswalks, isn't that indicating to traffic to watch out for pedestrians, but not bikes who we would be expecting to ride in the lane on a bicycle boulevard?
Yes.
But we're trying to slow traffic for bicycle traffic, not pedestrian traffic.
Oh,
Does that
yeah.
So are we
think-
accomplishing that with the raised crosswalk? I mean, it's telling traffic to slow down for traffic in that crosswalk, but if we want it to be a bicycle boulevard, aren't we shifting all the bicycle traffic directly into the middle of the lane? Does that make sense?
Are you asking in the context of raised crosswalks or raised
Yes.
intersection?
Sorry, in the context of a raised crosswalk.
Well, Ted, I don't know if you want to, my answer would be in my mind, the purpose of the raised crosswalk is to elevate pedestrians so they are more visible. And given that there's a school or schools on both sides, I think that is an important feature to have. I guess I would also note that bikes can go on the sidewalk in this area, and therefore act like pedestrians, and so they would go across on that crosswalk. But that's my primary purpose in wanting the raised crosswalks, is for pedestrian safety. But if you're saying, Brad, that would interfere with bike transit or could?
Just in terms of this road as a bike boulevard, where we're encouraging cycle traffic through,
Right.
Are we helping those people with the raised crosswalk?
So in one sense, no.
Okay.
Because yeah, I mean, it's still a raised crosswalk. The cyclist is going to have to climb it to get across it in order to enter Franklin.
Yeah.
I think at the moment, I think that's just a feature of Franklin being, like, again, a local street that's intersecting these collector designated streets at those exact places. Yeah, it's not, I've been thinking about that too. If there was some way to alter the approach to the crosswalk or something in order to help cyclists get over it faster. Yeah, just because we have this, and yeah, as Mark is pointing out, the reconstruction extends all the way to Bristol, so past Park Lawn.
And I like the raised crosswalk idea. I'm just not sure it's helping cyclists in this case. So
Right. And I mean, strictly from that perspective, right, it's not intended to. So
yeah.
Mark, can you remind me the raised crosswalks, which direction are we proposing again? Like
They
if
would
you
be-
your cursor.
One on this side and then one on this side. So they'd be oriented north-south. So I'm blocking with the arrow, that would be one crosswalk. And this would be the other.
Right. So if you're a bicyclist just going down Park Lawn, it's not a problem. It's
That's
just
correct.
So if
Well,
you,
And also, I'm sorry to interrupt, Carrie, go ahead.
no, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say also, if you're a bicyclist going east-west, you are also obligated to stop. And so
Right.
it's not gonna hit you, you're not gonna hit you're not gonna hit them at a high speed. So, whereas on High Point Road in Middleton and then Westfield and Madison, I just came across this yesterday. There are these mid-block, speed tables, whatever. And those, if you're going 20, 25 miles an hour on your bike, you hit those, and that has a different effect than if it's a raised crosswalk at a stop sign.
Right. And if you're on Park Line turning into Franklin, you probably would be slowing down to make the
Yes.
turn. So
You should be.
yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good point, Brad, but I don't know if we need to be that concerned with it.
Okay, just checking.
I don't know, like that, I
Yeah.
mean, that's my opinion, but I don't know if others have.
Just how committed are we to this being a bicycle boulevard, and
Right.
are we facilitating that if this is the one street in the area aside from Elmwood that is serving that purpose? If not, no big deal. But if so, should there be more?
Right, which, I mean, on that note, since probably most cyclists using this are like me coming from the north, heading south, and are turning onto Park to cross University anyway, because there are no destinations for me in that Park to Bristol area. Maybe on that, even the stop control doesn't matter that much. It is kind of annoying having an east-west bike boulevard suddenly being intersected by a north-south collector just out of nowhere.
Well, that's not that uncommon in Madison too. You have the William or where the Capital City Trail runs. I can't remember the name of that. Is that Mifflin? No, it's not Mifflin. Anyway, you know what I mean. It's not uncommon to
Yeah.
cross these. So how about I document the raised, well, depending on your motion that you make, but the raised crosswalks on both sides of Park Lawn and at Branch.
Yes.
Was there anything
Correct.
in Bristol that I mean, this is only the east side of Bristol, so I think it's
Right.
looking at the whole intersection is maybe not as practical.
Yeah. I'm okay with leaving Bristol alone for now.
I mean, that is
everybody else
the
is.
gateway to this is a major intersection connecting, to and from the school. This is the
Yeah.
high school property.
And Park Lawn is a major thing going to
Right.
the pool,
Right.
right?
Well,
So is that a
and-
proposal there, Park Lawn?
And to the north side. Yeah, I mean, this would be, we would put one on each side here.
Okay.
So is that your direction you're giving?
So yeah, so raised crosswalks, yes. Sounds
Can
like
we spell out exactly where they'll be? So one on Branch,
One going, so if you're
Yep.
traveling north, if you, one across Franklin on the west side, like I'm showing here. I can zoom in if you want. So
Mhm.
one like this.
well, they're all crossing Franklin,
They're all
right?
crossing Franklin,
Right.
right?
So
So
one
the
at
one-
Branch,
And then each side of Park Lawn.
Right.
and not at Park Street too.
Not at Park Street, correct.
And what's the rationale for why you wouldn't put that at Park Street? Because it's all local streets at this way?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's designated local.
Well, but it may be designated that way, but this still carries more
Right.
traffic than another local. So I don't know if it functions really that differently. It's one thing to designate something on paper, but people are driving it like, it's been a through street and then they start.
I would
Right.
say too, I mean, I don't know if you've driven that during like before school lunch break, like there's a lot of pedestrian traffic.
Yeah.
On there. So I think it might be a good idea to do it there as well for pedestrians, but
So reconstructing the ramps on both sides or creating basically a level surface for the pedestrians going north-south along Park Street and Park Lawn and Branch Street.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
But I'm sorry, just to play devil's advocate. So why, with the north-south traffic on Park Lawn specifically, why would there not be some sort of impedance to traffic to have to slow down at because that's a collector street is the rationale Tad, right? Is that what you were saying?
Right. Well, okay, so that's like that's a variation of the how sincere are we about the bike boulevard question,
Okay.
right? How sincere are we about our street designations?
Well,
Because it's like you just said, people treat park like it's a collector, but it's supposed to be a local. So we designated Park Lawn that we should be doing what we can to direct through motor traffic to Park Lawn and moving it away from Park. We should be exploring, stuff to impede north-south traffic on Park, but not Park Lawn to achieve that purpose.
but there's a stoplight at the intersection, so that's why people.
exactly.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
Well, and
I
there's
know,
also signage to tell you to take Maywood to get to Park.
Yes, that's like
So,
that's
I
the
mean,
flow of
that's-
traffic is Maywood
right.
Park. Yep.
So why is that if
It-
we really want people who are trying to get to university or to cross university, why don't we keep them on Park Lawn? Are we sure Park Lawn is the collector all the way and it doesn't change to Maywood to Park?
It is.
I wonder if
Sean,
that's,
There's also been talk of Sean, has talked about, do we need to at some point in the future prohibit left turns out of Park Lawn because this intersection is I
yeah,
mean, troublesome, and there's also a very large tree that blocks views here.
that's
So-
true, yeah.
I don't know, I'm more concerned about if we have a north-south street, that pedestrians are still able to cross it. That's why we keep having requests for RFBs on across collector streets. So.
We'll get another one next year, although we still haven't gotten the one for this year, which is supposed to go up at Gaylord Nelson on Pheasant Branch. Carrie, can you ask at the next Public Works meeting when that's gonna be installed? Thank you. Because maybe we need one on Park Lawn. Or Park next year.
So I'm hearing raised crosswalks at on both sides of Park Lawn and both sides of Park Street, and then at the branch intersection.
Yes. Although
agree
getting
with
back
that.
to the bicycle boulevard idea, I mean, I think if there is
Right,
any support for having either Franklin or Elmwood or both be bicycle boulevards, this project should wait until what we mean by a bicycle boulevard, what that would look like, what the impact would be for pedestrians, cars, and cyclists and residents. You know, I mean, now's the time to do it, since, like I said, we have right now a request for over $3 million between three departments to do this project. So I don't know if making it a bike boulevard is just a matter of paint. I don't think it is. But yeah, we should make that decision before anything happens with, even with adding the crosswalks.
right. And so to jump back to Brad's point, if we do want it to be a bicycle boulevard, then we probably don't want raised crosswalks on either side of Park, because then that interferes with the bike boulevard concept. Although maybe jumping back to the other thing, maybe it doesn't. Maybe people are just turning onto Park on their bicycles anyway.
Or maybe we don't have a bicycle boulevard on Franklin and we make it Elmwood instead. Because Franklin has more in the way of school traffic, I would think.
I'm gonna make sure the front door is open. I'll be right back.
Are there plans for bicycle boulevards? Is that, I mean, as we're discussing it, it's, it does sound like more of the traffic moving through the city east-west goes on Elmwood, right? I don't think there is very much going on Franklin at this point.
I mean, that I think that's true, but like I'm not gonna use Elmwood because I'm on the north side. I'm on the north side of University.
Mhm.
It would be kind of silly for me to, unless I'm going to Sofra,
Yeah,
then I
well,
will use Elmwood all the way.
I mean, I use actually all the streets on the Maywood North and Franklin when I'm heading east. But again,
Right.
they're very busy at this point. They're really all very quiet streets. So it's not much of an issue. You know, as I see it, maybe crossing Park Lawn is probably the only one if I have an issue. You know, when I think about when I'm biking. I mean, the other issue, which is unrelated, but it was brought up, is Park Lawn without a traffic light. I do see the point of, at some point, it maybe only ought to be right turns. That's the only time I ever use it. And if I'm trying to cross with a car or a bike, I would go to Park Street because there's a traffic light there, right? That's why I guess there's more traffic than maybe it's designed for on Park Street because of the traffic light. But Mike, go back to my original question, again, I'm new to the committee, so is there discussion of creating bike boulevards? Is that something we've talked about? Or,
Not in the past. So what Mark was mentioning in the staff comments was the comprehensive plan mentions shared streets as alternatives to basically as an alternative to actually doing anything on University. And I guess my point is that that's not what shared streets are for. So that's why I mentioned the bicycle. I think I'm probably the first to explicitly mention the bicycle boulevards concept.
Well, the comprehensive plan does mention that the shared streets idea builds on the bike boulevard concept.
Is that what I see in Madison where there are, where it says bikes can use entire lane? Is that what you mean about shared streets?
Um,
Or is that something different?
I think that's legal.
yeah, I mean,
That
that's
does,
the bike boulevards concept, I would say. But yes, to Lisa's point, that's also just legal when there are obstructions or a narrow enough street.
maybe we need a field trip down to Madison and ride on their bike boulevard.
I'm up for a bike field trip.
Well, I would say at this point, the idea of raised crosswalks sort of at the end points and potentially in the middle sounds okay with me. I'd hate to see this project get held up. I know it's an expensive one, but there's a lot of other things that are part of it, it seems to me, right, that need to get done. So I mean, we don't yet have a concept of which streets would be bike boulevards and how we might do it. It just, I don't know.
Well, Franklin and Elmwood are the two that have been mentioned, but yeah, we don't have, it's true, we don't have a pre-existing plan for how to actually implement that. Just
And if
have
I
it,
were-
wouldn't
I
it be
think-
nice?
Yeah, and I mean, if I think about it, if it were a bike boulevard, it would be slowing down the north-south traffic that I'd be interested in seeing, right? On Park Lawn or Park Street, right? We'd want to be able to slow them down so that bikers could get across more easily and be seen, but at this point, we're not there, it seems to me, but.
I'm back. Sorry that we're having technical problems in the council chambers. Did you have a resolution on what you're doing?
I think I'm fine. I think I'm fine with what we said. So our feedback is to design raised crosswalks on both sides of Park Lawn, both sides of Park Street, and the west side of Branch.
Okay.
And Ted, could you summarize the reason?
So the reason
Or the
reason,
benefit?
right.
Yeah.
So the reason is to make pedestrian traffic to ensure that what's the exact summary?
How about to bring visibility to pedestrians in an area that sees a lot of school-related traffic, school-related foot traffic?
The pedestrians are more visible in vicinity of the two schools.
Right.
In the public pool?
And it's actually 3 schools if you count Cromrie and
The pedestrians are more visible
Yeah, there's Sock Trail.
in
Conway,
an
and Madison.
area that serves several schools. Okay.
And there's a lot of people that are driving that have recently just got their license in that area.
several schools and the pool.
And the aquatic center. Okay. Yeah, right back. Okay, is someone making that as a motion?
I will make that as a motion. Yeah. Right. We have a second.
I will second that.
That's Carrie. All right. Those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Hi.
The ayes have it. All right. Updates in 8 minutes. Go.
I simply wanted to mention, as I said earlier, that Tad and I have been exploring the bus rapid transit, and I know Alder Janeiro has gone on a couple rides too, maybe some of you as well. I actually had a quick video that I made that if you're willing to watch it, I can show it quickly. Tad, this is a little treat for you too. Oops. Just a second here. Yeah. Just a second. I'm in the wrong. Just a second. Do you see it now?
Yes.
So this shows you the bike infrastructure that has gone in by the BRT stations in Madison. And here's a protected bike lane, which attracts families with kids. The green paint really improves visibility of where bikes are supposed to be and alerts drivers to that. Guides bikes through the intersection. This is at the Seago BRT station. And this is one of the new stations. There's on board each bus of these bendy buses, as some people call them. There's these bike racks at the back door, the farthest back door. There's a bike rack on each side that can take a couple bikes. This is turning onto Mineral Point Road, bus coming the other way. Looking down to the west on Mineral Point. And then this used to be a sidewalk on the north side. It's been replaced with a 10-foot path. Again, this green paint is so effective in my opinion. I just really, what I'd like to see us do is hire Madison and paint some of our facilities. Contract with them. So you get the idea. And then this is the western terminus of the BRT station, where they charge the buses. You give them a quick charge before they go back out on the road. So anyway, I just want to share my experiences on that and encourage you to give BRT a try. It's really pretty easy to use. I've ridden it 10 times already. 10 trips, I should say. Anybody else have anything to add on that? Week without driving. We've had, I think, council, Alder Janeiro, you had a report from the council, right? That about.
Yeah, 3 of the members walked. 4 of the members. 1, 2, 3.
3 drove.
was
3
3
drove.
drove, and
and
the rest
5
either walked or biked.
Right.
I was the one who biked.
So we've had some buy-in. I have not touched my car since Sunday. I took 8 different trips yesterday. So this is a good challenge for me. And
Well,
many
it
people.
started on Monday technically, and I only touched my car Monday afternoon to take my sick dog to the vet. And if I could have gotten him there on a bike, I would have, but
So the point is
Yeah.
to try and encourage people to understand what it's like what the barriers are to driving. There's a lot of people who aren't near a bus line or don't have access to transit as efficiently as we do here in Middleton. So it's meant to be an eye-opening experience. It's not a requirement that people do this, but we are challenging ourselves. Carrie.
Carrie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was wondering, was there any outreach done with like the schools about this? And if not, like no one has to answer, but I'm just thinking maybe for next year.
Well,
I know I sent it to
that's an
my,
outstanding suggestion, and I can tell you that I did not reach out to them. I like that idea a lot, and as Lisa and I have talked, and Tad too, we need to do a little more advanced planning on some of these things. So I did not think to invite
that's
them.
okay. I'd be
Yeah,
happy to
this-
help with that next year because I know I mentioned it to my daughter who's a freshman, and she mentioned it to her friends, and her friends said, "I've never heard of that." Like they were like
Well, it's only
just
the
didn't even
second
cross
time.
their mind,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That
Yeah.
they could like to maybe like not drive. So yeah.
Yep, it's only the second time I think that it's been done nationally.
Yeah.
And so to have Dane County participate, there were, let's see, Madison was there, Fitchburg, we were there, Sun Prairie. Anybody else? Was McFarland there? I don't think so.
Remember, you mean the regional event? on
At the
Monday?
regional event to
Yeah.
kick it off. Mm-hmm.
Schools, that's a great idea. We'll promote it more next year.
Mm-hmm.
And we are doing social media posts every day here through the city, couple listserv messages. It culminates this Thursday, this Saturday, excuse me. You're all invited to a community event, community bike ride, 3 p.m. Saturday at Stonehorse Green. So I hope to see you there. I
Very,
need,
very casual, a casual community
right,
bike
like a
ride.
4 to 5 mile ride. Not just meant to be a learning experience to show people a couple new developments. Bell Farm, we'll go up there, and then make our way back on the path system west of the Beltline. So I hope you are able to make it, and I'll make sure to post it as a potential quorum. Number 3.
Can I just add one more thing about Week Without Driving? I know the origins of it are with disability rights activists, and it is to call attention to the challenges that people face when they don't have cars. But I think given Middleton's goals for sustainability and making our community easier to get around, complete streets and all that, I see it as both an opportunity for people to see both the challenges and the opportunities. So I just wanted to throw that out there because we are fortunate to have fairly frequent bus service in Middleton. And so I agree, we need to be thinking about, and boy, am I getting a education on the challenges, but I'm also learning what the opportunities are. And I think that's a nice balance.
And I will say this, a little pro tip. I learned yesterday when I was coming back from the east side, yesterday late afternoon. I had to do a transfer if I wanted to, and I had my bike with me. And at Hilldale, I looked at the platform and saw that the route F to transfer to was 15 minutes behind me. I thought, that's longer than I want to wait. So I stayed on the bus to Mineral Point Road at Westfield by Westtown, knowing that from there, it's all downhill to Middleton. It was flat or downhill. And so then it took me a 14-minute ride to get back to the city. So I'm finding new ways to use our system, and it's been a great experience.
Folks, I don't mean to interrupt, but
Yep.
my meeting is starting right
Yep.
next door. And when I go, we'll lose quorum.
Yep. The active transportation plan is open through October 6th, and then committee work plan was just a recurring item. So I don't have anything else to update on.
Yep.
Okay.
I
Thanks.
believe we're done. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Take care.
Thank you.
Goodbye.
Bye.